Hi, good morning everyone. Good morning. Morning. It's gonna be full of introductions. First, my name is Ago Pedalizo. My wife, right there, Violeta Reyes. We're proud, for 1 week, we're proud to be members of the San Mateo Congregational Church, United Church of Christ. And of course, I have my former pastor here, Pastor Ben Silvaneto. So today is a very momentous moment in the Filipino-American history because we're marking the 46th year anniversary of the Declaration of Martial Law. And I have here with me, and it's an honor to present the people who have come long before me, who have actually experienced the very heat of tyranny and dictatorship, but survived along the way, fighting for justice and peace in the nation and in the neighborhood as well. Our organization, so I'm a member of the church, and of course I'm also a member of the Filipino-American Human Rights Alliance. They're going to speak about it, but we've been in existence for the last 2 years, since the show them what's going on, and the bottom line is show some love, mercy, kindness, and social justice. So without further ado, let me go on to the speakers. First one is Arturo Garcia from Los Angeles, writer, journalist, and he was there even in the 80s and 70s fighting against the dictatorship. The second speaker is a well-known community organizer, human rights lawyer, is an immigration attorney, Rodel Rodis, who's based in San Francisco, and both of them will share the experience and their insights on where we are and where we could be in the months to come. So, without further ado, let me present to them. Let's give a big hand to them. I thought we're going to do the... Yeah, you can use the podium. We can start.
Good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
I would like to begin with a biblical passage, and this was read by our pastor, Cardinal Singh, on August 28, 1983, when 2 million people sent off Senator Benigno Aquino Jr. when he was killed in the Manila International Airport on August 21, 1983. I cannot help but cry when I heard this biblical passage, and I would like to share it with you. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yes, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hung our heads upon the willows in the midst thereof, for they carried us away captive, required us to sing a song that they wasted us, required us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. But how shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? We exiled here in the United States, and we say self-exiled, because we left the Philippines to find good pastures. Amnesty International reported that more than 350 political killings happened during the Marcos regime. 70,000 arrests, 300,000 were detained, and millions of people dislocated in the 14 years of martial law. It is underreported. The most prominent victims of salvaging, which we now call extrajudicial killings, were Religiosa Hina, the first political prisoner who was killed in Camp Rami, and Dr. Juan Iskandor, who was salvaged in 1983. They both suffered the torture and they died of torture. Or we do not know how they died. But there are two prominent, and I would like to describe to you. When they were killed, they even what we call destroy their body for the economic meaning their stomach. And that's how they brutalize political detainees. They even destroy their body even when they are dead. And that's how brutal is the passive regime of Marcos. Not only that, during martial law, religious people were persecuted. Father Nilo Valerio was beheaded. Father Jeremias Aquino, Reverend Jeremias Aquino of the UCCP, Father Pais Bernardo, Father Eduardo Canleon were killed, and they make it appear as accidents. They died because of car accidents. And the only priest who went missing at the twilight of the dictatorship until now cannot be found is Father Rudy Romano, a Redemptorist priest in Cebu. That's why 44 years after martial law, here comes Duterte as the new president. I never thought that this will be a repeat performance of the Marcos regime. Duterte ordered mass murder. We called extrajudicial killing that we recorded in Para as 24,640 as of September 25. That is one of the tasks of Para. We monitor how many people were killed. Most famous victim was Kian de los Santos, a 70-year-old high school student from Caloocan. He was picked up and then he was just shot near the garbage heap in Caloocan. 32 children and minors were among the 24,000 victims, and President Duterte called them collateral damage. On September 27, this month, 2 days, almost 3 days ago, Duterte admitted himself on national television and the broadcast that his only sin is ordering extrajudicial killing. A tacit admission that he ordered the mass murder of Filipino people. And the worst, 6 months after he assumed power, he buried the dictator in the National Heroes Cemetery. That's why we formed Para 2 years ago. So, in behalf of Para, I call on every one of us here to express solidarity in our struggle. We should stop the killings in the Philippines. We should not let another dictatorship come over the Philippines. And I will end up with another biblical passage that I love. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Thank you very much, and I thank you for giving me this space and time to talk about the brutalities of martial law that I never expected that I will experience again. So let us all struggle, ipaglaban ang mga demokratikong karapatan, fight for democratic rights in the Philippines. Maraming salamat.
Instead of using the mic, there's a lot of the reverb. Can you hear me there? Just
There's a wireless microphone. There's a wireless microphone.
this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me? Is this better? No. Is this better? Okay, thank you.
It should be working.
I think it's good.
Okay, because I was hearing the reverberation. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My name is Rodel Rodis. I'm a lawyer, but before that, I used to teach at San Francisco State University. I taught history and history of Filipinos in America. 46 years ago, when I was teaching at San Francisco State in Ethnic Studies Department, at that time, we had a community newspaper called Kalayaan. nationally distributed, and we had correspondents from all over the country, and we were reporting about what Marcos was doing, that he was on his way towards declaring martial law. He had suspended the writ of habeas corpus, which allowed him to arrest people without warrant, and we felt the stage was being set. So we asked our national contributors to come to San Francisco, and we would organize a more national, more organized network so that we could report on what was happening in the Philippines. So about 20 people came, and we were in Chinatown at the Manila town, and we were in a convoy of 5 cars one Friday afternoon. We were crossing the Golden Gate Bridge when we turned on the radio, and it was announced that martial law was declared in the Philippines. By pure coincidence, just as we were crossing the Golden Gate Bridge. It was a Friday afternoon because it was declared on Saturday in the Philippines when there was no school, so Marcos could make sure that the students were not out organizing and protesting. Very calculated. So we spent the whole weekend at the Girl Scout camp in Fairfax, Marin County, planning what were we going to do to oppose martial law, to organize opposition in the U.S. And we created an organization called the National Committee for the Restoration of Civil Liberties in the Philippines. And I was the Secretary General of that. And we started with a national day of protest on October 6, 1972, in front of all the Philippine consulates in the U.S. And we contacted our Senator Alan Cranston, the Foreign Policy Advisor, Dr. Ellen Frost, and we started presenting her with a lot of documents about what Marcos was doing and what should be opposed. And Senator Cranston was the first U.S. Senator on the floor of the U.S. Senate to come out against martial law, to denounce Marcos, so we're very proud of that. The church was very important. A lot of our meetings were held at the Glide United Methodist Church and in other Methodist churches around, much more than the Catholic Church. The Unitas Church in Berkeley, which is a very progressive Christian group, had a building where they contacted us and offered an office space for us, which we accepted. So when I went there with the staff, we asked the group next to us, which was a group that was fighting the dictatorship in Greece. There was a military dictatorship. And I remember asking the folks there, how long have you been fighting the dictatorship in Greece? And the guy said, 7 years. And I said, 7 years? We're not going to take that long. You know, the Filipino people will not accept martial law. We have a democratic tradition. We believe in civil liberties and human rights. Marcos is not going to last long. Famous last words. That was in February of '73. And of course, we know Marcos martial law lasted 14 years until 1986. So I had to eat my words. The Greek group, what was I saying? Greek. It was the Brazilian group. They lasted another year, and then the Brazilian dictatorship was overthrown, and they were able to get democracy. Meanwhile, we were still demonstrating. Some folks here, Geline, Dale, were out in the trenches. Dale was organizing in Seattle. Geline was here in Berkeley and Oakland. So we were doing all of this, and so that would take a long time. At that time, our theory was that Marcos could not continue without U.S. support, that he relied on U.S. military and economic support. So if we cut off that support, martial law would end. The theory was sound, but it would take 14 years before we got that to go, before Reagan told Marcos, to leave, and he left because of people power. 2 million people went out in the streets. So we thought, well, that's it. We've done our part. everything is done. People power will result in democracy. So how do we find ourselves here repeating what happened, like deja vu all over again, like all the things that Marcos was, Duterte is doing even worse. Art mentioned killing and torturing. Duterte told his soldiers, when you see women, NBA or guerrillas, shoot them in the vagina because that will make them useless. He said this openly in front of television, it wasn't something down hidden. He announced that women are only good for one thing. If you shoot their vaginas, they're useless. How can a monster like that, who has even compared himself to Hitler, mistakenly believing that Hitler only killed 3 million Jews, and he said he can match that, that's what he wants to go after. This is a monster that we never thought would happen. And one of the things we're reflecting, how did this happen under people power? Well, one of the things that happened during the 6 years of the time that Cory Aquino was president was that she was preoccupied with 14 coup attempts against her government. She was preoccupied with survival. There were so many military officers who were seeking to overthrow her that she didn't have the time to institute or set up the democratic institutions that would make sure this didn't happen. In particular, Marcos, during his time as dictator, not only filled the military with people from his home provinces, so it was the Ilocano nation up in the north, as he called it, he made sure that they were in the top levels of the Philippine military. But it was also in the education department. The entire education bureaucracy, the history books, government civics books, were all dominated by Marcos people. So during the time of Cory, people in the schools never learned what happened during martial law. They even were made to think of Marcos as a great man. So years later, the kids who grew up in the education system under Cory did not know what martial law was like. That if you asked them, what was it like? They would say, oh, he was a great man. So that allowed for the Marcos family to rise up. The one son ran for vice president and he claims he won. Another daughter is the governor of the province of North, likely to win a Senate seat. The wife, the widow of Marcos, ran for president, is a member of Congress. The Marcos family is entrenched in the top levels of government, industry. Many of the newspapers in the Philippines are owned by the families of Marcos and his crony. So it could be seen that the institutions of government, the media, are still controlled by the same people who gave us martial law. And now they're supporting Duterte. So it's back to square one in many ways. But even worse, we can't rely on the US Congress to cut, number one, Trump supports Duterte, while, and secondly, Duterte is now relying on China, even Russia. So there is no longer the pressure of cutting off military aid. He has said, so what? I can get arms from China, from Russia. He signed an agreement with China that will bring 3 million Chinese to work in the Philippines. A lot of the contracts he signed for infrastructure require that the labor be provided by the Chinese. 100,000 Chinese workers now are working in the casinos all over Metro Manila. My sister was telling me how many Chinese they now see everywhere in the malls from the People's Republic, not from Taiwan, not local Chinese, but from the People's Republic. And I could talk and talk, but let me get your questions so we can be able to have a much better discussion as to what we can do.
Okay. So thank you, Art. Thank you, Rodel. Wow, we covered like more than 30 years of history in 10 minutes. Okay, so the second half of the program, we're going to have the open mic. But first, I want to introduce to you, I told you it's going to be full of introductions today. I'm going to introduce to you my new pastor, Reverend Dr. Penny Nixon. So that's many pastors. Okay. And then I also want to acknowledge the presence, and Geline, you can join us here. The presence of Geline Avila. She has been a long time fighter for justice and has worked in the Philippines, so we want to invite her. Later on, we're going to have Donnie De Leon, who's going to make a statement regarding the very recent event which happened 3 days ago. The Philippine National Police, which we accuse of 25,000 murder, has now established an outpost right in San Francisco. And as an organization, we're going to make a statement on that. So, again, feel free, it's an open mic, and the floor is yours. And we're going to have the wireless microphone here. So, any questions or any comments or statements from the audience? Oh, go on.
Anybody who wants to ask questions? To Rodel or Art or to
Or
Geline?
to Geline. Yeah, go ahead.
First question.
Hi, I'm Brenda Kelly. I remember this church. I came because I met, yes, I met him and I knew this was happening. I have to say I know very little about what's going on in the Philippines. So I have a lot of questions. But the one that I think the first speaker said about Amnesty International, I don't understand what they have done or not done or are doing, and that concerns me because it is a very prominent organization. So if you could provide some information on that.
Who would like to answer that? Probably we can use the microphone.
They don't have one. I cannot pull it off.
Oh, it's coming. Feel free.
First, Amnesty International did a lot of good things in the Philippines. They visited political detainees and they worked to make many of them released. But what I am saying is that they are misinformed. Because the task force detainees were only formed around 1977, and there were a lot of killings that they were not able to record. That's why I'm saying the data that they gave up, it was accepted by the Hawaii court, and it became a reference for everybody. They only recorded 3,500 killings. But as I said, during the 4 years of war in Mindanao, more than 50,000 people, Muslim, more people were killed in the fighting between the government and the Moro National Liberation Front. We do not know if there were collateral damage or many of them. Well, but it is very clear. In one massacre alone, 1,000 Muslims were killed in the town of Palembang, Sultan Kudarat. And the worst thing, they killed 1,000 men, and all the women, as young as 14, were brought to naval ships and they were raped by the armed forces of the Philippines. I would just like to give you that data. Because the Amnesty International is out of the Philippines and they only receive data from human rights organizations. So, Amnesty International has done good things for us, but they were only misinformed.
I just want to add, I don't think anyone is blaming the Amnesty International. They have sets of protocols where they rely on what they can be able to obtain. And the killings in Mindanao, they couldn't go there. The military, those were, they just were not able to verify or have a means of verifying it during the time that, because they can document the 3,500 who were killed. They can't document the 50,000 in Mindanao who were killed, so that's why that's not in their list. It wasn't, they didn't mean to exclude it, they just had no means of verifying it.
Just one kind of follow-up, because I wasn't in any way trying to argue for Amnesty International. I'm trying to figure out, as someone that knows very little about this and believes you, as to what is the path to really change things, and who are the people or groups that that you're working with and that we all could work with to make something better than what it is right now, because it sounds horrible.
So probably this, I could ask you a little bit of that, and probably the group. So there are actually two petitions that we actually posted through the door. Two. One is a Senate Bill 1069.
1055.
105. Excuse me. There are so many bills in the U.S. Senate. And this particular one is basically asking the Philippine government to make the war on drugs be more of a public healthcare issue as opposed to a crime issue. And the other thing too is that we're asking our government not to sell arms to the Philippines in killing their own people. So that's a bill that is pending right now in the U.S. The other one is also there is also a petition in international court to look at this as a crime to humanity, and we're asking people to sign up for that. So if you haven't signed, please do that so we can use all this. And our group here in the Bay Area, the Filipino-American Human Rights Group, with other human rights groups, is also working. And this is one way of basically educating people, because as Reverend Finn said, this is not going to be covered by the main meeting. So we really have to do a lot of this work. I see your hand raised.
Yeah. So if you could just help me understand, and about, you said about the contracts, that they built into the contract that they had to hire, I think Rodel, you said that, had to hire Chinese workers. And can you just shed a little more light upon that? I'm not understanding that relationship and why that would be the case, and how that plays into the horror that is going on there.
Yes. If you go to Africa, you will see there are a number of countries that China has invested in infrastructure. But you will also see that the workers are not the workers from those countries, but Chinese workers bought from China. That's part of the contract they enter into, is that they provide the equipment and the labor and all of that. So that is what they're doing with the Philippines. They've offered all of these infrastructure projects, but the requirement is that the ones who will work on that are not local people, but Chinese workers. Now, in the last 6 months, I think it's the Wall Street Journal or Forbes had an article documenting that 100,000 Chinese workers have been brought in to work in the casinos, because if you go to Manila, it's like Las Vegas now. There are huge casinos, and many of the customers are Chinese coming from Hong Kong, from all over the mainland, and they need Chinese-speaking workers to service them. Many of the department stores in the malls, like Mall of Asia, they require the managers to be Mandarin speaking in order to deal with the influx of the customers. So that's why it's just amazing if you go to Manila now to see so many Chinese there. The Philippine population is 103 million. And now 3 million Chinese are going to be coming in. So that's just going to make it that what concerns us is the Philippines won an important victory at the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea regarding the West Philippine Sea that China has been trying to take over. And under Duterte, he has said he will not enforce that because he can't, because the Philippines is no match for China. So Chinese trawlers are fishing, scooping up all the fish in Philippine waters, and the Philippines is helpless or doesn't want to do anything about it. With this 3 million Chinese coming, it's going to be impossible for the government in the future to try to change whatever Duterte has already started.
I just want to add a little bit, and then we can move on to the next question. Oh, just
Geline
first.
I would just like to add a little bit to that. As a historian, I like to kind of give a little bit of a background. As most of you, I'm assuming most of you know, that the relations between the US and the Philippines span many, many decades. It begins, of course, with the forcible annexation of the Philippines as a colony, the first ever formal colony of the United States at the turn of the 20th century. And US, since then, US presence and influence in our politics, in our way of governance, in our culture, in the kind of educational system we have, and even in our everyday lives, have been influenced a lot, or have felt the presence of America, of the United States, of what we regard as American. So when Marcos declared martial law, everyone believed that he could not have done so without a tacit, at least a tacit agreement on the part of the United States. And then for more than a decade, almost 2 decades, we had to suffer under Marcos. And even though the United States has a statute which was enacted in 1973, martial law was declared in 1972. In 1973, this country already had a law that said the giving of military aid and the sale of military arms to another foreign power has to be conditioned on that government's observance of human rights. If you quote that law directly, it says, any country, the government of which consistently conducts gross violations of internationally recognized human rights, Section 502B of the law of this land, the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, will not be allowed. It was a way to also tame a little bit the power of the executive branch of this government, so that there can be a way in which you can say, you can't just do that because foreign relations is under the executive branch. There is a law that has to be done. So under Marcos, it was very difficult to implement that. There was one time like a 0.3% cut to military aid to the Philippines, which amounted to about $40 million. So he continued. And now we have a new situation in the Philippines politically under President Duterte. He comes into power and announces the Philippines will pivot away from the US and away from Europe. We're gonna go to China, we're gonna go to Russia. Bye-bye America. These were his words. You know, your nonsense military agreements with us, we didn't benefit from that. We're gonna say goodbye to that. Okay, so he immediately came on with this very anti-American posture. Okay, so he went to China. He was promised loans, about $9 billion. Also some direct investments. And as of today, none of those loans have been downloaded yet. As of today, only a $73 million dam project north of Manila has been started. So all of this bragging on the part of President Duterte that we can move away from the US is no longer has influence on us, can be done because we're now in China. But that's not exactly true. So I am concerned that if we don't take into account what is the reality of US-Philippine relations today, we will go out of this room today thinking there's not much we can do as Americans. There is a lot you can do. And in fact, we stand before you this morning, or it's now afternoon, to ask for your solidarity once again, like you helped us with the Marcos dictatorship. Help us get at least the Section 502B of the Foreign Assistance Law. to be implemented, make it stronger. Because today, the fact is, the Duterte government still relies primarily on the US for its military assistance. For 2017, President Trump allotted $180 million for Duterte, for the Philippines. So it still is a factor. It still is a very strong factor.
One more questions, please. Okay. By the way, we need to recognize that one of your members of the congregation used to be an ambassador to the Philippines. So I saw him this morning, and I remember you. I watched you on TV.
Hi, thank you very much for coming. I was just curious to know why there's been so little attention given by the media to this. Is it because we're just immune to leaders saying monstrous things, or are journalists intimidated from going to the Philippines because of persecution, or what is it? Why isn't this coming out more in the media? And I'm assuming it's not just the US media, it's global media, but it hasn't been reported in much.
Who's gonna take that?
The New York Times has actually been excellent in covering the Philippines in what Duterte has said, and the photo spread in the New York Times. They even won a Pulitzer Prize for the photos that they showed of the people who were killed, the victims coming from poor country. Now, Duterte repeatedly says when he is asked, when will the killing stop? And he would say, when the last drug lord is killed or is dead. The problem is that none of the people, 25,000, have been drug lords. They've all been drug users or accused drug users using shabu, which is methamphetamine or even marijuana. And they're usually in their flip-flops because they come from poor neighborhoods. Meanwhile, the big drug lords, like Peter Lim, they're going around, they've not been touched. So it's a farce to say he's actually going after drug lords. He has also said he is dependent on fentanyl. He has a condition that makes him dependent. So he himself is a heavy drug user. And his son, Paulo, was charged with bringing in 7.7 million or billion pesos worth of drugs. And he was never charged. He was brought before the Philippine Senate, but he just denied it, and they didn't pursue him any further. So in many ways, he's not after drug users, he's after the competition, because his family is deep into the drug trade.
Yeah.
But
Please use the microphone.
so why is there not much coverage in U.S. media? I think that's also the nature of how the media is, and it's not atypical of our experience in fighting against U.S. support for the Marcos dictatorship or exposing what was taking place there. And when I look back at it, I can say that what was very key here in the United States was our battle for the opinion of the U.S. Filipino community. It was, in a lot of ways, it had noisy kind of, periods and commas throughout more than a decade, but it was primarily a silent battle. We understood that the Marcos dictatorship wanted to win the opinion, the silent majority opinion of the Filipino community. So we organized on that basis and provided information and things like that. We also understood that if the broader US society does not see anything wrong with its US foreign policy being touted by how many administrations, from the end of Nixon to Carter to how many years of Reagan, that it would be almost impossible to be able to do something, about it. So it is both a battle for the opinion, but it is also one that has to be hinged on concrete action. So where can you make a concrete action, responding to the lies that come from the Philippines, as well as taking to task our own elected officials, our representatives in the legislature, the executive branch, and whoever, including the other, members of civil society here, from the media to everyone else, to see what is taking place in the Philippines, that we will not be an innocent bystander. We are implicated because of our history.
Thanks,
I just want to add, it's very interesting that whenever the media talks about Trump's affinity to dictators, they would show him with Putin and they would show him with Duterte. That in the public perception, in the media perception, Duterte is already viewed as a dictator favored by Trump. So, unlike during Marcos, interestingly enough, Marcos paid millions, tens of millions, to a public relations firm in Washington, D.C. that was headed by Paul Manafort. So if you look at, if you Google Manafort and Marcos, you will see that his first, before he started representing the Russians and others, it was Marcos that was his main source of income. And thank God he's in jail. Hope the others follow.
That's why we do these forums, because we cannot rely on media. Media will always play the news of the day. So how can we compete when the issue is about Caban, Brett Caban? And who cares about the Philippines too far away, 6,000 to 9,000 miles away? That's why we come to you. We beseech you. Hear us and spread the word. The most important medium is by the word of mouth. Even during Marciano, people say the only true thing in all newspapers, radio, and television is the date. Everything else are fake news. But that's why we spread the word by word of mouth. We conduct forums, we do demonstrations, and if you will help us spread the word, it will reach everybody's ear, and not even the mainstream media can stop us.
Thanks, Art. I think speaking of the spread of the word, I think the next part now is we're going to have statements of solidarity. But first, let's probably give a big hand again to the speakers. Thank you. So, if I may call on our pastor, Pastor Penny, to give a statement about the extrajudicial killings, followed by Danny De Leon giving a statement about the outposts of the Philippine National Police. And again, as an act of solidarity for this moment, we actually ask people to come over here because this is live stream. People from the Philippines are looking at us right now live. So can we stand behind Danny and Pastor Penny as an act of solidarity? Yeah, please come behind us. It's a photo op at the same time an act of solidarity.
So a couple people stay out there so I come on your pocket.
Yeah, please, yeah.
So I'll just inviting us up.
Yes, live stream. This is live stream.
Yes, the other video.
Yeah. Yeah, please come. You have microphone there. It's amazing how social media works. Yeah, go ahead.
Close up, close up.
Yeah.
Let's close up, let's close up.
So where are we live streaming? Where do we look
Here.
for?
The camera is there.
So let's do it this way so they get. Oh,
Yeah.
the back.
Okay.
So my name is Reverend Penny Nixon, and I'm the senior minister at the Congregational Church of San Mateo, and I am the proud pastor of Agbayan and Violete. And they have brought this to our attention. So first of all, I want to say to all of you who are watching in the Philippines, you are not alone. We stand here in solidarity with you. It's no news to anyone that any horrible dictator does the exact things that Duterte is doing. The act of disappearing people, the widespread torture, the rape of women, and then blaming everything on a drug war. We're very familiar with that in the United States itself. And that is to instill fear, it is to silence people, it is to do away with the liberty and justice of a democracy. And today, I, along with my entire congregation and my colleagues in the Faith Solidarity Cohort, stand in complete solidarity with the Filipino Human Rights Alliance. We denounce the mass murder that is going on, and we want to raise this issue up for people to be aware of. We want to acknowledge that throughout history, the U.S. has been implicit in some of these things, and it's time to turn that around. So, what can we do? First of all, again, we want to let you know you're not alone, that the word is getting out. The second thing we can do is to express our solidarity with FARA. The third thing, sign the petitions that they've asked for. Fourth thing, use social media. Spread this wide and far. The other thing we need to do is we need to call on our government, the U.S. government, to denounce Duterte. This cozying up to a dictator as heinous as he is cannot go unchallenged. And so today, as people of faith, as people of good conscience, as people of justice, we stand in solidarity and we denounce these crimes against humanity. And we want the world to know what is going on there. And to the families that have lost people, we express our deepest sympathy. And we ask that you would continue to have courage in this long fight that many surrounding me here have been in. You are not alone.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you for welcoming us to your home. I would like to do a final statement before we conclude. If you could just join me, it won't be too long. But if you cannot stand that long, it's okay. This just happened 3 days ago, and we wanted to announce it. This is a statement by the Filipino Human Rights Alliance calling for the dismantling of outposts of the Philippine National Police in San Francisco, California, and the East Coast. The brutal and deceptive tentacles of the fascist Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte regime responsible for 25,000 deaths due to extrajudicial killings has reached the United States in the guise of global policing, aka Duterte spy networks against progressive and democratic opposition abroad. What is ironic is that the Philippine National Police has not apprehended the big-time drug lords of Duterte, like Peter Lim, based in the Philippines, and his son, President Paulo Duterte, who is responsible for 6 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs shipment, but now has trained its guns and spies against people, leaders, and activists abroad. In another way, the Philippine National Police and the Department of Local Government officials can also spend people's money, people's taxes, by junketing abroad in the name of global policy, just like the PNP or the Philippine National Police, where they junkets at the Euro generals and the Duterte junkets to Israel and Jordan. Now, the primary goal of the global policing of the Philippine National Police and the DILG is to harass, scare, and spy on activists and leaders of the democratic opposition abroad, especially in the U.S. That is why they established their outposts in San Francisco. Because you know that San Francisco has been the bastion of anti-Marcos movement during martial law until today against Britain. The main targets of the spy network under the guise of global policing are Filipino citizens who are based in America, Filipino-Americans, dual citizens, and the American public, whom the Philippine government can monitor when they visit the Philippines. They are building up a list so they can harass us, a blacklist, or deport when they visit the Philippines, just like what happened with Sister Patricia Fox and others. We should not let this spy network and global police establish its post in the United States. It's travesty of freedom and justice and the rule of law of the United States when a foreign nation that abuse and kill its citizens extend its past rule in America. We should not let the killing of Jean Viernes and Simi Domingo in Seattle, Washington in 1981 by the order of Ferdinand Marcos to be repeated in the United States. Let us not let the spy network of Duterte gain a foothold for their fascist activities against the Filipinos, the Filipino-Americans, and their allied personalities and organizations. We say no to the Duterte spy network, out with the Philippine National Police and the DILG for their global policing. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
First of all, the only thing I really know about the Philippines is my dad was stationed there. And he survived. He was the supply sergeant. So they were, the Philippines was used to supply. Yes.
How did he escape?
Oh no, he's after World War II.
Oh, it was,
Yeah, he was there for the whole war.
Yeah.
And I think the only time, at least I don't really know, because my family was in my family talked about some of the details of the crime. But according to my dad, one of my dad's stories is the only time he ever left the Philippines was when he went AWL and took the plane because he heard his brother was on a ship. And then it almost got shot down. But he just didn't. But he was there for the whole war. My question is, how many people from the Philippines are citizens of the United States? Because I know there's quite a large number, because I was recently and my husband was his friend's husband, and a lot of their staff, doctors, nurses, med tech, you name it.
Volume of matter is finite, right? Just like, this is all coming from response to Marcos, but I want her to focus on this is human rights.
Exactly.
Si Bloody.
Oh, yeah.
Si Bloody. Serbia,
yeah.
Pinuntahan yan, inaresto. Pinabalik yan.
Word.
Okay. I just would. It's my second time over here, and I feel so welcome.
Good. Good. You're coming here.
Yes.
Nice speech.
Good. Where did you get these? Are you from here?
My sister, I don't know.
Thank you for coming.
Hi.
Hi, kamusta?
Problem.
Ano pangalan mo ulit?
John po.
Asawa ka ni James, di ba?
Apo.
Oo.
Makikita naman
John?
tayo sa
John?
John po.
John.
John.
Thank you.
Kita ko yung mga, ewan ko mag-friend kayo sa Facebook. Pero yung mga pinost nyo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hanapin ko kayo. Anong last name mo, James?
James King. Pero nakikita ko kasi nakapublic.
James King. Okay.
James King.
Okay. Sige.
Ang ganda na
Thank you.
Tinext ko siya eh.
Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you.